What's going on, guys? It's Unknown Player here, and today we'll be talking about Dr. Salim and what he's been getting up to recently in these Black Ops 3 Snapchat videos. I'm going to play a few of them over in a second for you guys to watch and listen to the audio, and I'm going to be talking about what's important about them, kind of summing up some very interesting things that we can actually gather from these collectively.
The human mind holds many mysteries. I am deeply optimistic about this project's potential. Of course, the human consciousness is fundamentally unpredictable. Trials are now underway with a new set of subjects. Similar physiology, different environmental conditioning. Following minor seizures, the subjects D2 reported a brief period of impaired hearing. Similarly, D5 complained of a decreased sense of taste. The duration of these episodes can range anywhere from a few seconds to several hours. Subjects appear unable to distinguish the implanted memories from their own.
So what you can hear there generally is a sense of Dr. Salim messing with patients, and he's definitely doing some very, very odd psychological things. I think the most recent one that we actually got today is probably the most telling, and we can gather a lot of what his experiments are actually involving, and possibly what is going to be in Black Ops 3, the storyline, and how it's going to kind of play out, and the technology involved for your soldiers, and kind of explains what the description meant about a new breed of Black Ops soldiers. So Dr. Salim is, of course, this very mysterious doctor, which we don't exactly know whether he's helping the patients, whether he's actually like against them, whether he's doing what he's supposed to be doing, who he's working for, whether it's the government or a private agency. We don't know what exactly is going on, but we're kind of piecing together these puzzles with these Snapchat videos. I think it's better for me to cover them as a whole, because each Snapchat video is kind of like a piece of a greater picture, and it's easier to look at them together in kind of a group, and we can get a lot of information when you kind of put them together. So talking about them in a general sense, we can see that he's doing a lot of very, very strange things. If you haven't seen my last video, I was talking about a hidden message in one of the Snapchat teasers. I definitely recommend you check that video out. There's basically a hidden message encoded into the audio of one of the most recent Snapchat videos, and I brought it out into a spectrogram so you can actually see it, and it's a very, very interesting kind of like Easter egg, and I thought that was very interesting, so definitely check that video out. I'll link it in the description and annotate it on screen for you guys to check out if you haven't already. But today we're talking more about Dr. Salim and what he's actually been doing with these experiments. We get a lot of information about he's experimenting on, he names subjects such as D2 and D5, and that sounds like quite a lot of groups. There's possibly an A, B, C, D, and if there's D2 and D5, there's a lot of groups. This is a very, very big scale experiment, and it seems like he would probably be working for some kind of great company, possibly even the government, but a very large company indeed if he's experimenting on this many people. And he did say that D2 reported a brief sense of impaired hearing, and D5 complained of a decent sense of taste. So these are like the basic human senses, and they seem to be kind of losing them. So whatever he's doing to them, it seems like he's possibly like turned them into cyborgs, and he's definitely messing with their brains. We can get that from a lot of the brain scans that's going on. There's definitely some kind of psychological work that's going on in addition to that. But I think the most interesting thing is the most recent one. He said the duration of these episodes can range from several seconds to hours. Subjects unable to distinguish implanted memories from their own. So that is very, very telling. Dr. Salim is somehow implanting memories into these patients, and that links all the way back to the very first teasers we got, where he said, listen to the sound of my voice, imagine yourself in a frozen forest. He was saying imagine yourself in these places, and we thought it was some kind of therapy, but it seems these actual what these experiments that Dr. Salim is undertaking are actually implanting memories into these people, and maybe they're soldiers that have just come out of war, maybe they're trying to help them in some way, kind of get them back into the fight, or maybe they're just about to go into it. Maybe this is some kind of procedure that all the Black Ops soldiers have to undergo before they become actual Black Ops soldiers, these next generations. The description of the game was actually talking about, but it definitely seems that there's some kind of implanting, and it links back also to what Treyarch have been talking about on their Facebook page, which I discussed in a recent video. And this idea of implanting microchips into them and like enhancing them with technology, like injecting people's eyes with night vision. There's definitely a lot of messing, and it seems like what Dr. Salim might be doing could cause more harm than good to these patients, and they seem to be becoming almost like robots. When you lose your senses, you're losing basically what makes you human, and when they're injecting people with these crazy things and putting microchips into their brain, he's like implanting memories into them. There's definitely a lot of very strange things going on, and it seems like this is also a way for them to kind of explain the zombies storyline. This is a very, very likely way that I think Black Ops 3 will introduce zombies, some kind of way that Dr. Salim's experiments were going on. I think, of course, there's going to be the basic Black Ops storyline like we've always seen in Black Ops 3. There's also, I think, the way they're going to explain zombies is some sort of experiment that Dr. Salim was doing that he was doing wrong. Maybe there's going to be some kind of link between him and Richtoff, and maybe Salim is an actual co-worker of Richtoff, and maybe I'll link it in that way. But we can definitely see the way like the camera flashes and the way they become almost less human. It seems like this is an underlying story of how they might introduce zombies and kind of bring the lore of zombies into the game. And another thing that they mentioned mentioned in some other Snapchats were about mental conditioning and how he's optimistic about this project's potential. It definitely seems that what Dr. Salim is doing is actually going pretty successfully, and it's going in the direction that he wants to go. He says he's optimistic, and we don't know exactly whether this will be good or bad for the human population, whether he's actually doing a good or evil thing, but it seems like his experiments are going to plan, and whatever he's trying to do, he's actually succeeding. And this whole implanting memories into people and trying to essentially brainwash and maybe instill people with propaganda is actually going to plan, and maybe he's going to get what he wants. And I think this is definitely something to do with how Black Ops soldiers are created. That's a very distinct thing that Treyarch did put in the description of their game, and I think this is possibly an earlier on procedure, and we don't know exactly why all the imagery we're seeing in these Snapchats appears to be from a very old era. It appears to be from the 1950s, 40s, around that general kind of a few decades, and we don't know exactly why the imagery is like that. We know the game is set in the future. I think there's definitely some flashbacks, and maybe this is an earlier on kind of version of these experiments. Maybe it was something that was taken from the Nazis after the Americans beat the Nazis. Maybe this is kind of experiment that the Americans took from them and kind of developed on it, and kind of maybe it's something that originated from a Nazi idea after the Americans defeated them. And maybe Dr. Salim is actually dead, and maybe he was only alive during those 1940s and he began the experiments. Maybe there's a new doctor that is actually alive in this futuristic setting, the current day of Black Ops 3, and he's looking back on the old recordings and the old audio logs that Dr. Salim was recording, and perhaps that's the case. Or maybe Dr. Salim is alive now in this current day and he's looking back. I'm not sure how his voice kind of comes into play, because obviously he's talking, and but maybe he's talking over it. Or maybe Dr. Salim is actually still alive. Maybe he's managed to found, because he's a doctor after all, maybe he's found a way to live more than 100 years, because there's definitely a huge time shift in the setting between when these recordings look like they're taking place and the current day, which is Black Ops, which is probably, like I said in my past video, probably around 2070 or 80, around that era. So definitely a time shift. I think it's going to be some sort of flashbacks or possibly even teleportation involved in this, maybe going back to World War II. I know a lot of you guys would be really happy with the idea of going back to World War II for a couple missions. I would myself. And that have been some of my thoughts on what Dr. Salim has been getting up to in these Snapchats, some very strange things. Of course, any updates at all, I'll keep you guys updated on my channel and of course on my Twitter, which will be linked in the description. Hopefully I've enjoyed the video. Leave your thoughts in the comment section below, some of your theories and thoughts. I love reading those. But I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys on the next one.